I'd say it's definitely kind of intrinsic. I identify as demisexual as well, so it's really interesting to be able to go out on stage and just kind of like express without the pressure or need of like actually engaging with anybody specifically.
Hmm.
I do feel like sexuality is something like a lot of people, I feel like it's very connected with my spirituality. And so having that outlet and having that connected to something that's already so spiritual for me, which is performing, and that process of sort of becoming and expressing, um, is just really it's something that comes out when it comes out, and when it's not a sexual performance, it's not a sexual performance. So
Hmm. Yeah, well, it sounds like you're fairly integrated in the sense of I hear spirituality, I hear sexuality, I hear
mhm.
gender, I hear even just family and all that. It all seems like it seems to be interconnected. It's not like I think oftentimes things are compartmentalized.
Oh yeah.
Um, what would you say kind of causes that all to come together for you? Has it been difficult to get to that place, or has it all
Oh
just kind of made sense?
yeah, it's definitely been difficult to get to that place. That was one of the things that was kind of like the impetus for me realizing that I'm not attracted to men. I identify as lesbian in simple terms, but I'm attracted to non-binary people as well, so that's broader terms.
Right, right.
And when I was coming into that, like I just kind of started realizing how compartmentalized my life was and
Mm,
how I felt sort of divorced from church and that sort of culture, while at the same time having my experience with dating a woman, um, being separate from my home life.
mm,
And that was, kind of a necessary thing. My ex and I were living with my then in-laws, and so like it was for safety really that I
right.
couldn't be open and out loud about any of it. But once I realized that, and once things really started to snowball in terms of like getting split up and like um then eventually getting a divorce and um all that good stuff, getting a job, doing things that I'd never had to do before because my husband always did it.
Right.
Um it very naturally just kind of all flowed together in a very symbiotic way, and it was really freeing.
Hmm. And Callie, Callie says it can be difficult for parents to realize their children have sexualities.
Mhm.
For sure. And I think, when we think of sexuality too, I think people often talk about like it always goes to the behavior. It's all always about like sexual behavior. But sexuality is so much like more than that. I do agree with it. It's almost like a spirituality. Sexuality is just a part of us. It's not something that I don't know, it's just always with us. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean we're having sex. That just means that we have a sexuality. We have a sexuality is at play in more than just like sexual behavior.
Oh yeah. Sexuality, I feel like when I was kind of like learning what demisexual meant for myself, I did a lot of like exploring like different kinds of attraction and stuff like that. And so it just felt very natural to just kind of like identify as demisexual for me. But for those who don't know, there's different types of attraction. There's sexual attraction, there's
Mhm.
romantic attraction, there's aesthetic attraction, which I experience for all genders. Imagine how confusing that is. And then platonic attraction, all these different kinds of like attraction and love that a person can experience. But a lot of times in the media, it just gets boiled down to
Mhm.
sex and romance, which is, you know, valid for some people, but for others, it's a little bit more complicated and not as strict as like my sexuality is wanting to have sex with somebody or wanting to go on a date with somebody and get cuddly. Like, it's not straightforward always.
Right, right, right. There's maybe a little bit of gray area, or even it sounds like there's a lot of exploration.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. How would you say that your spirituality, how would you identify, label, how is it that you experience your spirituality today?
Um, to put it easy, I just kind of identify as like kind of like omnitheist agnostic witch. which is kind of like a lot. Some aspects of Gnosticism in the sense that like when it comes to the Bible, and I do kind of believe in the Christian gods, but when it comes to the Bible, I don't think that the Old Testament God was very loving or kind.
Mm.
And I think that there's a lot to be learned from Gnosticism as well, just in regards to expanding your understanding of Christianity and things like that. And then I do also identify with other deities as well, not just Jesus or the spirit. I do like the idea of the universe. I'm very drawn to deities that kind of um, explore concepts of like life and death and rebirth and things like that. That's a concept that I really identify with. Like I do tarot readings for myself and others on occasion. And that's something that really resonates with me as like symbolism for expressing ideas and exploring concepts in one's life. Not necessarily like telling the future, but exploring the future,
Mm-hmm.
exploring opportunities and ideas and possibilities. And one of my favorite tarot cards is the death card.
Mm.
So I'm very drawn to like there's this one Egyptian goddess, not very well known. Her name is Kebet. I probably totally botched that pronunciation, but she is the daughter of Anubis, you know, the god of like the underworld. And
Mm-hmm.
she brings water to those who have died before they're judged. And that's something that I don't know, that really struck me when I learned about it. And then there's also Marana, which is a Slavic goddess. I have Slavic ancestry on my dad's side. Um, very like Croatian, like a quarter of my ancestry is Croatian.
Mm-hmm.
So as an adult, I've been like kind of exploring that. And there's this goddess Marana who's just kind of viewed as like this goddess of winter and death. And um, they burn an effigy of her. People who worship her or not necessarily worship her but fear her will
Mm-hmm.
burn an effigy of her every come spring to just kind of like bring about her rebirth as the goddess of spring and life.
Mm-hmm.
And so my spirituality is kind of very centered around like this process of like um the death of oneself and the life of oneself and the transitional period and just the cycles of being one way and then becoming something new.
Yeah, yeah. And what would you say the function of that is for you? What do you get from like, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
um like for me, it doesn't necessarily look like rituals, although I do enjoy a good ritual from time to time. It's more along the lines of just concepts and ideas that offer structure to my understanding of the world. And um, like in terms of like witchcraft, I would definitely consider myself a chaos witch because I just put energy into things more so than do rituals about things.
Gotcha.
And that's something that just resonates with me and um, how I practice my spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of it comes out in just like creating things or sitting down and like relaxing and like playing a video game and just like kind of meditating during that process. Like, um, yeah.